All right. I'm gonna show you a spot a friend of mine played on the final table of, I believe it was like a $50 turbo on GG Poker. First of all, we're gonna have a look at the preflop solution, what GTO would do, what we could do different from GTO, and afterwards we also gonna have a look at the post-flop sim with ICM involved because it differs a lot from what we would do when there is no ICM. So as you can see here, this was the spot. So we are on the final table, 9 left. We have 27 big blinds, which is around average stack. You can see there are a lot of shorter stacks. For example, here the under the gun player is pretty short, and here we have a short stack, the button as well. So as we can see as well, like at this point, we would get $333, and our ICM value is 1.4K almost. So you could imagine that we have a pretty big risk premium to clear here. And now the question is how do we approach spots like this one? And we're going to have a look, first of all, at the bubble factor here. So here you can see we are in the small blind and we face a raise from middle position 2. So as you can see here, it's like 2.17, which is like insane. It's like you can see here the number below the percentage. We need like, I would say between like 15 and 20% extra equity if we would risk our whole stack. So this does not apply fully if we just, flat call versus the open or something. But if it would go all in, this is basically what we need as an extra percentage. And just talking about these kind of numbers for the ones that are not very familiar with it, at 2.1 is like super high. So it really depends on how many players are left, obviously, on final table, and also on the payouts. But it doesn't happen very often that you get a number that is higher than 2. So that means that we have to be super careful here. But it was also your intuition, right? As you saw the stacks and stuff, you would have probably guessed that yeah, we have to be kind of careful here. All right. So then also some important thing maybe to show you is that coming back to the bubble factor is that we have 2.1 versus the middle position guy. And if you go to the middle position guy, you can see, because he's basically the chip leader, you can see it's green everywhere. So it means that he does not have this big of a risk versus all other stacks. So that is also why he gets to play pretty aggressive. He can open very wide because we have to be super careful playing versus him. But he actually could just do whatever he wants, basically, right? He could just play GPV and that would be fine. So you can see versus us, he only needs like to clear 4%, which is not a lot. And we will see later how it influences the strategy, basically. So, all right, so let's have a look here. So this should be his opening range in GTO. As you can see, it's like 37% from the low jack, which is super high. Not even in GPV, not even. I mean, it's like close to cutoff-ish range, I'd say. So, but he's 2 positions earlier. So yeah, that explains kind of the thing I talked about before. All right. So, and what happens if he opens is basically this would be our strategy. So you get to see like purple is 3-bet jam. So we want to be quite aggressive with jamming. You can see we obviously fold a lot with like 89% of our range is just going to be folding. So, and that's probably also the approach we have here on the final table, being like this kind of mid stack. We just want to fold, fold, fold. And yeah, if we have like a strong hand, a good spot, we want to go all in basically. And you can also see like free betting non all in to like 6 big blinds is also not really that big of a thing. And I come back to that later with some node blocks to explain why we also don't really want to build a 3-bet non all in range. And you can also see green would be flatting with like 0.2%. It's just not really a thing here, or at least it prefers to jam a lot. And why this happens is basically when you check the ranges behind. So what happens if we flat? You can see that actually the big blind, you can see again purple is like squeezed jamming basically. You can see that the big blind should technically play super aggressive. You can see like he's supposed to basically go full frequency all in with like any suited ace with like more than 50% of his suited king X. And yeah, it's like super, he wants to be like super blocker oriented, and also he wants to have like the best possible equity versus a calling range. And like in high ICM, when the calling range is mostly like, the strong pocket pairs like tens, jacks, queens, kings, aces, obviously. Like ace 7, for example, does pretty well in terms of equity versus, kings, queens, jacks, because it has an overcard. So you don't really want to, in ICM, 3-bet squeeze jam pocket threes, because when you get called, you're mostly almost dead with your 20% equity, because the calling range is like very often an overpair. So yeah, that's basically why it looks like this. But anyway, that's not as important now. It's just about how aggressive big blind is going to play if we flat. And now, yeah, you probably think then, yeah, it's maybe we can flat a little bit more if this happens, and we will see that later. Yeah. So, and then obviously when big blind 3-bets, I mean, that's not super interesting, I would say, anymore. But yeah, that's just the thing. And also when we with 3-bet non all in, you can see this is again the big blinds range. It's again like super aggressive. I mean, it's folding jacks, but it's going like to 4-bet jam with like a lot of these low suited aces, which probably is not going to happen. Even on very high stakes, I mean, on very high stakes, it's probably happening, but you have to play like super high binds that people are going to play like this, I would say. So yeah, also this again would speak for 3-betting non-all in a bit more, right? If we don't face this aggression from behind all the time. Yeah. So, and if we just 3-bet and the big blind folds, this is the range of the opener. So you can see again, purple, he's gonna attack us very aggressive with the suited ace-x, even with some offsuit ace-x. And if you see this, these are like a lot of combinations. So if you see this, it would be like similar to when the whole block here would be purple. So it might not look as extreme, but it's like even more extreme than it looks. So this is also like a very aggressive strategy. And it's also, again, because of if he goes all in, we have to fold like a ton, because we have this, like we saw, like almost this 20% more than equity we need if we want to call off our whole stack, basically. So that's the reason. So you can see we have to be super tight, even though his 4-bet jam range is like super loose. So yeah, but just to show you, if you might wonder now, okay, or do I now always have to jam, all my hands and stuff? And the answer is obviously no, because we saw that people are probably playing a bit different. And even here, you can see these are the EVs of flat calling. You can see that all these kind of hands that would probably feel intuitive to call are also able to call, like pocket eights, king 10 suited, ace 10 suited, ace jack suited. These kind of hands are are fine, to call. And you can also see these are the EVs for three betting non all in. Also hands like ace queen, ace jack, tens. It's also fine as a non all in, but it's just the best EV, the highest EV to jam them. You can see here. And if we like compare calling to the next best action, so in this case it would be all in. You can see that these kind of hands in this area are not really making a big difference. You can see it's like 0.01, so it doesn't really matter whether you're gonna. You can also see it here with the dollars. It doesn't really matter whether you're gonna call or you're gonna jam. So and you could make an argument about calling more often, so you don't have to risk your whole stack, because ICM is also not really taking into account if you have an edge or if people are punting around and stuff. So if you think, oh, all right, it's like it's a soft table, it's probably better, to just flat or go for the non-all-in 3-bet rather than, risking your stack and might run into, a bigger pair or something. That would be like terrible news. So yeah, you can always flat, you can always 3-bet non-all-in as well. Just make sure you're not too wide. All right, then if you might ask yourself now, okay, looking at his, raise first in range, it's just too loose, right? You don't think that they would open up that loose. So I also node locked a bit, and I made the opening range tighter by 15%. So before it was, I think, 37, and now he's opening 31, which you can see now it makes a bit more sense. I also don't think that people are gonna raise Jack 9 off, 8, Queen 8 off and stuff. So yeah, now it's a bit tighter, and I didn't change other things, so I only changed the raise first in, and I also didn't node lock the ranges behind, so you can see it's still fine. And now what you get to see is that we still mainly want to jam. You could see that we are playing less hands, obviously, because his range is stronger now. So we tighten up a little bit, but still the main strategy is jamming. But you can still also see that it's also possible. It's a bit red, it's a bit of green, so it's similar to before that we can still call, we can still 3-bet non all in as well. So yeah, that's basically it. So not much is going to change, but that's like kind of a big but. Now, when I only node lock the raise first in, it still balances the range correct. So it's still gonna, now when it's tighter, it's also gonna fold more hands versus if, for example, if we go all in, because it has to, defend the proper frequencies. And for example, when the range is wider, he would, call more hands versus our jam. So if we want to check that now with like a tight-ish opening range, he's gonna basically call ace, queen, and tens. And before it was, if we go all in, he also calls ace, jack, and nine, a little bit of nines. So because he has to defend more because he's opening more. And if you, now would change that he's gonna, also still call like nines and ace jack. Obviously, this would hurt our jamming EV. Now you think, oh, it's nice, getting called by ace jack with pocket jacks or something, or with nines. But if you have to consider that you need 20% more equity, like getting called is basically always bad. So you always prefer the fold, and that's why, yeah, it could happen that if someone is tighter, but I would have locked the range, calling off loser, obviously, it would probably suggest to flat a bit more and to three bet non-all-in a bit more. But yeah, I mean, at some point I had to make like a cut, because otherwise it's gonna take too much time to basically to show everything, to explain it. So yeah, it's just the node lock of a tighter opening range, and yeah, that's it. And now you might wonder, yeah, I mean, fine, tight opening range and stuff, but the big blind behind, is still doing its thing with, being super aggressive. And what if this is not happening? And now what I did is I basically did node locks in all the different nodes, and yeah, this is what I think is reasonable from players at this level. I don't really know the players involved in the hand, but I would say like the average player pool is probably playing something like this, and you can see here. I also think I would agree that the opening range is tighter, but I would say there are much more pocket pairs in there, as you can see here. Um, they shouldn't even open pocket fives, but I highly doubt that 100 big blind chip leader from the low jack is not going to open, pocket fives. So, but I guess they're going to miss some more of, the queen nine offs and stuff, and the queen four suited and the king deuce suited. I think this is kind of what I would say is reasonable. And then I also node locked, as I said, like everything behind. And now you basically get to see that this would be our strategy. So this is like super extreme. So we basically gonna play 80% of our range, and we always gonna be three bet non all in. And there are some hands that still want to jam, and I'm gonna explain later why that is. And this is just because they are not attacking enough and also overfolding versus three bet non all in. And obviously, I would not suggest you to execute this kind of strategy, because imagine if you three bet them 5 times in a row on a final table. It's not like at some point they're gonna play back. You're not playing versus a bot that is not able to adapt. So that's why I would not do that. But it's kind of cool to see in which direction you should go. So you should not really risk your whole stack, and you should still execute an aggressive strategy. And you can also see now that the ranges behind are not that unreasonable, I think. So if we call and outlook the big blind to like call a bunch as well, and to do some squeeze jamming with these kind of hands, obviously like ace jack plus, pocket sevens, some suited Broadway, some suited ace x, like not too extreme, I think. Then I know locked him to three bet non all in with some aces, kings, queens, and some offsuited ace x, which is probably happening as well. Could even be that they are gonna overdo it with the offsuit ace x, because they would just always jam the queens and stuff. But anyway, that's not gonna really change a lot, because we can see like flatting is not like really a thing here. Yeah, and then if we call, yeah, that's basically what happens. And if the big blind, let's say three bets non all in, I think that's what the raise first in guy is gonna do, is probably get it in with like nines and ace queen and ace king, and some bluffs, but I don't think they would have many bluffs. And he's going to defend some pairs, and mainly here the hands that do pretty good versus the range. And then yeah, what happens if big blind is gonna jam? I think a squeeze jam. I think he's gonna defend somewhat something around those lines, and yeah, he's basically just going all in, obviously. Yeah, that's like the node when we call, basically. So you can see it looks kind of reasonable. It still has quite some 4-bet bluff jams and stuff. So it's not that unreasonable, I would say. It looks pretty good to me. And then when we 3-bet, what happens is I think big blind is just not really gonna want to attack us, right? Like imagine yourself being in a spot like this, and you're kind of like, oh, all right, the small blind 3-bets. I have 20 blinds. Yeah, let's just. I think he's wide. Also chip leader involved. Let's just bluff jam. I don't think that's gonna happen. So still some low frequency ace 5, ace 4, ace 10, ace jack. They don't really know what to do, and then mainly like nines, tens, ace queens. I would say is in there, and yeah. Then from middle position, I would say it looks something around those lines. I think he's always getting in with like ace king and nines or eights, and then he does also probably 4-bet jam some low pocket pairs, some suited ace x, sometimes some ace jack off, some king queen off, some king jack suited, some low frequency. Yeah, you could argue about this being like higher frequency, but I just don't think people are playing that aggressive. Some will, some won't, but I think this looks kind of fine. And then if we jam, this is what big blind calls. I think he should not call pocket jacks, but I think he would not fold pocket jacks and also not ace king. And I think if if we jam big blind calls, middle position is probably not gonna fold queens and ace king suited, and if we just jam and big blind folds, this is what mid position calls. So I think it's gonna call ace queen off, probably maybe ace jack suited, maybe pocket nines, something like this, because you have to see that he's opening like pretty wide, so he can't just raise fold like everything, because otherwise he would be like a super easy target to just 3-bet jam on him, and that's why he also has to defend some hands. Yeah. So as you saw, you might agree that the ranges look fine. Some of you might think that it's just too tight, not enough 4-bet jams and stuff. But I think this is fine. And now you might wonder, okay, but why do we jam ace king, and why do we jam queens and jacks still? And this has to do with maybe you also can think for yourself why, or maybe you already did, why queens, jacks, ace king. It's kind of the same hand strength, I would say, and this also already tells a bit why, because if we now 3-bet and his 4-bet jamming range looks like this, the problem is it's just too strong, and we can't call 3-bet call jacks or queens anymore, because we need these 20% more equity. So if the range looks like this, even they have tens, jacks, nines, eights, and some suited ace x, some lower pairs, it's still like too strong that we are able to 3-bet call with pocket jacks. So you can see we're only able to call basically with kings plus versus this range. So that's why these kind of hands just want to go all in to avoid 3-bet folding such a strong hand. But again, here with all these node locks, we can like real quick go through the EVs. So here, this is basically the calling EVs. So you can see compared to before where it was GTO, here now we are able to call a bit more hands, and I mean it's pretty obvious, right? If the big blind behind is not going to attack it that hard, we can obviously expand our range, and you can still see like hands like this, even like ace 5 suited, you would be able to flat call, even like pocket fours, you would be able to flat call, king jack off, you would be able to flat call. So I guess most players would never think, oh, it's ICM and I have to be careful, which it is. We saw like it's a super high risk premium, but still you're still able to play some hands. You can't just fold until you have no blinds left, unless like the whole table is punting around, spinning around. But yeah, so yeah, and then you might wonder, okay, what about the jamming EV? Because we saw like we want to three bet everything, so I don't have to show you the EV of three betting, but the jamming EV um, went maybe down a little. If we see here we're still able to jam a bit wider, and now we are only like plus EV jams is basically only like tens plus and ace queen, which kind of makes sense. Are the hands that you probably know that are always good, so you you can't really do a mistake with these kind of hands. And then if we, for example, compare the AVs, so if you want to see, okay, can we still call hands? You can see that the areas where it's kind of white-ish, the difference between calling and three betting non-all-in is quite marginal. So we are still able to basically flat hands like ace queen suited, ace 10 suited, king jack suited, king queen suited. These kind of hands are usually doing pretty well as a call. Also maybe pocket tens, pocket nines, eight, seven, sixes, fives, seven, six suited. So you can see kind of the area where the hands are still doing pretty well as a call. So, and this is just the difference. So if we look at the call itself, they are even like king jack is profitable, but this is just the EV difference, the EV loss basically when you would flat instead of three betting non all in. But as I mentioned, like if you don't want to execute like such an aggressive strategy, then these kind of hands are the first ones you probably want to take in your calling range instead of the three betting range. Yeah. So yeah, overall, I would say, yeah, like kind of a tough spot, kind of, because yeah, you don't really want to go out here in ninth place when you have lots of shoulder stacks around as well. But I would say, yeah, in the end, after seeing this, a hand like pocket jacks, I think is always doing pretty well as a jam. I think also pocket queens, because you're just getting called enough by like pocket tens, pocket nines, pocket eights. Um, so yeah, that basically means that jamming here is probably, at least in my opinion, is probably the play. But I would say like if you call here, it's not like a huge mistake, and if you threw a non in, obviously it's also not a huge mistake. So pocket jacks or queens or tens or like these kind of hand categories are doing well. But I mean here, why I would jam, I will come to that later when we look at the post flop stuff. But here you can save yourself some trouble of being involved in like in a post flop pot out of position, which already kind of sucks because your equity realization is already bad anyway. And then you play versus the chip leader that can actually put a lot of pressure versus your stack with his stack. So you kind of have double the pressure because you have the ICM and you have the equity realization of being out of position. So like playing this is probably super tough. So you could definitely save yourself some energy as well when you just go all in or through non all in to just avoid playing post flop with these two factors that are very bad. And yeah, so now I'm gonna import everything into PIO solver, and I'm gonna cut the video here, and then I'll be back with with all the post-flop solutions. All right, welcome back after a few hours of destroying my CPU. As you can see here, it's a few hours later by now, but I'm ready with all the post-flop sims, and we can have a look at them. So I will show you first the hand, how it played. First of all, we called preflop, and then we are facing a c-bet of 33%, and we went for a check raise. Player called, and then we went all in on the turn. And now the question is, how would it be played in GTO, and how should we play if we make some no talks? You might wonder, as we saw pre-flop, there wasn't really a flatting range, so I just created a flatting range, obviously, and it looks like this. So it's danced around exactly the hands that we saw are having a similar EV between going all in or through betting and calling. So, and these are also the hands that are probably most players are gonna call them instead of like doing something else. So just in case you wonder, but we will see it later as well in the post-flop which hands are in there, but just to show you. So the first sim, we're gonna have a look at the GTO sim. So I allowed for, like, as you can see, lots of different sizings. So in position has 4 sizings, basically like the min sizing, which is 16% with 1 big blind, and then 33, 66 cent pot. And out of position has the same sizings, and same goes for like turn and river for in position, out of position. It's like you don't have to add that many sizings anyway, but I have like a decent computer, so I doesn't really care if it takes a bit longer. But this way I make sure I don't miss anything. Yeah, sure, I could have add an overbet, but since it's like quite a big ICM situation, usually we tend to go smaller, and the SPR, especially after the check raise, is like pretty low already, so it doesn't really matter anymore. And also even without the check raise, we're only playing like 25-ish effective, so we don't really need to add an overbet. But yeah, let's see what GTO would do. And this is out of position. As you can see, we are like basically donking, let's say, 2/3 of our range. And this is just because our range is stronger. You can see here that we have 55% equity, just because we have like mostly suited hands. We also have the pairs. So we always have 2 overs, or at least like a pair, which is super strong, while in position has, like, you know, the queen highs and stuff that only have 1 overcard, or even like a hand like 7-6 suited that doesn't even have an overcard. Also way more offsuit hands. So that's why we are actually we would implement a donking strategy if our range is like super strong and his range is pretty wide. In game, I'm not sure if this makes sense, because we will see if we check what's supposed to happen, or we can also see later what happens. But I think that people are playing pretty wrong versus the small blind. If they are in position, they think it's kind of similar to when they play versus a big blind, or they are just used to it. I mean, they should know it, but they are kind of used to it. So I think also in this spot, I think, or I would expect like way too many c bets, especially on a disconnected board, like 9 for deuce. It's like almost for certain that he's not recognizing that our range is actually super strong and he's super wide. So yeah, instead of going for a lead because we want to lead, right? Because there is a risk of him checking back too many hands and him realizing equity. So we want to kind of push our small advantage with our 55% because lots of our hands are, can just get value from a bit of weaker hands. So that's why we want to donk. But if they just range bet anyway, uh, we can just play it easy and just check our range here. Also, you can see it's like mixing. So if you would compare, like the EV, you can see it's white, which means here it's like a zero EV difference between donk betting and checking. So it doesn't really matter. So okay, but anyway, we checked to him, and this should be his strategy. As you can see here, like lots of different sizings. He's using like everything, I would say, but mainly he's gonna bet 33%, or he's gonna check. So the two big blind c bet that actually happened here is what he should do mostly, besides checking. So for the ones that thought, okay, he should bet one big blind, seems like that's wrong. So two big blind, it should be the sizing. And you can see, I think what stands out here is that he still has to check 35% of the time. And imagine if we would not donk bet, then our range would be a bit stronger, even though we are mixing with like all the combos a bit. So, but he still needs to check a bunch for imposition. That's quite a lot. And yeah, as I already mentioned, I think people are just not aware or not enough aware that how strong our range actually is on the final table. Some people, as we saw here, even flat pocket jacks, maybe even pocket tens, pocket queens. So we have like quite a stronger range than usual. So yeah. And yeah, what happens if we bet 33%? You can see like our frequency. Uh, we are mainly calling. We are not really interested in raising. We are like sometimes raising with our sets and then some, even some very polar stuff like Jack 10, 2 overs with not even like a backdoor. But we don't really wanna raise, for example, with Ace Jack of Spades, because it's just too strong of a hand. It just plays better as a call. And yeah, just also here you can see pocket jacks doesn't really wanna do any raising, but we could compare again the EVs. So you can see it's again white. So it doesn't really matter like all of the hands, since we have still a decent advantage. We could also check raise and build like kind of an aggressive check raise strategy. It obviously comes down to whether we would expect him, to overfold a bunch, or if he c bets too many hands and then folds too much. But now this sim, we just want to have a look how it looks like if it was played kind of in an optimal way. So yeah, that's that. Also going back here, you get to see like he kind of wants to bet with his top pairs, and then what stands out are kind of hands like 7, 6s, ace queen, ace jack suited, and these hands that have like like 50% equity, they really here as well like 56, they really want to check, and they don't want to bet and build a pot, even though imposition has a pretty big risk advantage, but he still has some like 5% or something to clear. So also that's why he doesn't really he's not really interested in building a big pot with like a medium kind of hand. Um, yeah. So all right, if he let's go here again, and yeah, we that's what happened. He went for a check raise with the pocket jacks, which I guess as we can see is like if he would play like kind of a GTO approach, it wouldn't be wrong. Like that's not a mistake. We saw it in the EVs. It's just yeah, whatever kind of. But anyway, if we go for the raise, we can see he should definitely not be re-raising since or three betting since we kind of have, super strong hands. So we are kind of polarized. We have like sets and then some, jack high kind of hands. So yeah, he doesn't really want to three bet versus this range to like fold out all the trash and getting called by like all the strong hands. Yeah, you can still see he needs to fight. He needs to defend kind of wide. So he would even need to call with like check 10 offsuit uh, if he has a diamond. So two overs with like a kind of bad backdoor flush draw, he would need to defend mostly. So yeah, we could think about him overfolding a bunch in this spot, but yeah, with pocket jacks, we have like a pretty clear value hand, and we are definitely not interested in folding in him overfolding. So if we think he's going to fold too much, and we are missing out on value, then probably check calling is the better option. But yeah, in case he calls, turn was the 9 of hearts. We can see if we compare the turn cards, we can see that actually over cards are quite good for us because we have a lot of them in our range. Our range is basically suited broadways, and we can also see if we look at the equity that the 9 of hearts is one of the worst cards for us because he still has because he had like a pretty wide preflop range, so he has quite some suited 9x in there. He even has like king 9 off and ace 9 off, so he has a lot of combos that are trips by now. So that's a pretty bad turn card. Even if it's a flush completer, it's still not very nice. So yeah, that's why you can see here we are like checking 82% of the time. So because yeah, it's just a very bad turn card. And what happened here is that he went for, you can see it here in the bottom, went for the jam. Let's see if this is ever a thing or if this is wrong or how we should look at it in GTO. So here you can see if we bet, we always bet like 1/3. We are not really interested here. You can see like we almost never have pocket jacks, but you get to see like we always check if you want to see the EV. It's quite big. If you jam, the pot is like 18 big blinds, and jamming is it's still plus EV, so you're winning like 1.4 big blinds, which is not like that much compared to checking. Makes you like not double of it, but it makes you over two, so the EV is over 2 big blinds. So it's quite a big difference here, I would say, between also the small sizing or the big sizing. We could compare it, but it's kind of tough since yeah, you can't really see it. Um, so yeah, but we definitely, it seems, don't want to jam pocket jacks. Let's see what happens if we do. He's supposed to defend, or he's supposed to fold some 9x for some reason, but he's still needs to defend some ace fours and stuff. He needs to defend, you know, some ace queen of spades. So, and imagine if he's gonna fold these kind of hands, then obviously jam is gonna be terrible because we're gonna isolate ourselves versus like a pretty strong range. Yeah, but yeah, that's in GTO. It should look like that. Then okay, let's go on to the second solution where I did not allow for a small blind to donk bet, so our range is still fine after we check. And you can see now he's supposed, before it was like 30-ish, 35 or something percent. Now he's supposed to check a little bit more, and you can actually see that his preferred sizing is betting pot. It's just because he wants to kind of we have to see that imposition still has like a pretty big disadvantage. So he wants to go like kind of polarized. So he wants to get like the money in versus our strong range with his overpairs and with the best 9x. And then he obviously is also interested in bluffing something like 7 high, right? Because we have so many hands in like this area. And if he's able to fold out like 30% equity, it's like quite nice, especially for like his hands like 7 high and stuff, or like jack high. You can see it's like super polarized from imposition, which also makes sense. And you can see again now even more that hands like 7, 6s, ace queen, ace king suited are like definitely not interested in betting here. And yeah, if we go now, because we would never donk, I guess. So if we go now with 33, we can see that we are not really check raising, only 6%. We are again mainly defending with calling. We didn't have to defend with some king jack without any backdoors, even with some jack 10 without any backdoors. So you get to see as well that the possibility of us overfalling is also there. So that would again make sense for imposition to play actually wrong and to bet at the frequency that he's not supposed to bet, because he could just expect us to fold too much because we have just to defend a lot versus this kind of small sizing. Even, and this is considering all the ICM and stuff. So even here we just have to find some defense. All right, but here again, like you can see the EVs are like kind of similar. But you can also see like the hands we have to defend are kind of 0 EV. We just have to defend that he's not able to just bet everything. But it's just not very profitable to defend these kind of hands, obviously. And if we go for the raise, again, he shouldn't really be 3-betting the flop. He should defend like the 4x, you know, some of the pocket 8s, some of the pocket 7s with a diamond, some 2-over spectre flush draw and stuff. So again, if the 9 comes, it's a pretty good card for him. We will now still check like 75% of the time. And if we have pocket jacks, we can see now we have it a bit more often here. If we want to bet now, in this case, if we didn't have a donking range, we want to bet even smaller. We want to go for a 10% sizing. And if we now again want to check DV, now it's like pretty bad to go all in. If you look at the right kind of area where the pocket jacks are, like betting pot is making you, it has an EV of 27, while betting small has an EV of like 107. which is like a super big difference. So you clearly don't want to go all in here. You could check raise and then barrel, but you definitely don't want to go all in. What happens here is that's basically the reason. Now you already see the issue of going all in here. You're basically getting called only by stronger hands. Like the only hands that are weaker is like pocket eights or pocket tens, but then you're getting called by a lot of stronger hands. And we will see in the next sims it will get worse because here aces, kings, queens, they were betting pot on the flop, so they are kind of removed here. So he's only here with his 9x, which is obviously bad as well. But yeah, if we add even more of the over pairs, then it makes it worse. So if we don't have a donking range, but we still play GTO, we just want to again mainly check call, and if we check raise, we definitely wanna bet small to still if we bet small, we still get called by a lot of weaker hands. By, for example, ace king to overcards still needs to call. Obviously, pocket eights needs to call. Like ace four needs to call, and yeah, he's responding with like a super aggressive strategy because we bet so small, and he could still leverage the fact that he has a big risk advantage. So that's also why he's kind of interested in playing aggressive. So, and then let's see the next one. Here I also didn't allow for donking, and I only allowed for two flop sizings. So the main ones we saw, basically the pot and the 33%. And yeah, just did that I it's easier to not lock for afterwards. But here we don't really have to have a look at it. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really change anything then to the sim we saw before. And this is the one that is a bit more interesting. So again, no donking and two flop sizings, but I basically wait. Oh yeah, okay. This is basically I made him bet the same frequency, so he still has the same checking frequency, but he always bets the two big blinds, so the 33%. So he still he recognizes, okay, I have to check actually a bunch, but if I bet, I just bet all my hands with this sizing, and then we can see what happens here. So when this is the case, we can again compare the EVs. It's still super similar. It doesn't really matter, but we should mainly call, like we raise like nothing basically. So yeah, when he always bets the sizing, his range is obviously got stronger because he also all the overpairs and stuff are in there now. So now we are not even it's even less attractive to start racing here because when we look here, the equity versus his betting range went down a bit. So it's just basically a stronger range. Then here, what I did is also no donking, but I just doubled the frequency, or I mean I cut the checking frequency in half of it. So now he's only checking 22%, and still just always if he bets, he's just using the two big blinds. And now obviously his range became a bit weaker again. Now we can check the equity. We are still like at 52%, but actually this is even less than we had before, just because he now is just full frequency betting with all his overpairs with all the 9x. So yeah, it's not really it didn't get better. So and now we we want to implement, as we can see, like a raising strategy again, pretty similar from, regarding frequency than the first solution, where everything was kind of GTO. Pocket jacks, if we compare again, as always, it's just everything is white. But yeah, still same hands, same reasoning. But still, if we would go for a raise with like the pocket jacks, it definitely here it even wants to jack on the turn with pocket jacks, and it definitely doesn't want to go all in. You can see again the difference is pretty big between like let's say a smallish bet or a check or going all in. Like same kind of issue here, that we are just isolating ourselves versus like all the better pairs versus all the trips. And here he's supposed to defend even 7-6s because his range is wider because he c-bet he was c-betting too much. So imagine if he's not calling you off with 7-6s like king 4, ace 4, even ace deuce, king deuce. Like if this happens and if you kill all these hands, it's like the worst thing you could do with pocket jacks because you're never getting him to fold like queens. You're obviously never getting him to fold like a 9 or a boat or whatever, but you probably always get him to fold a hand that versus pocket jacks has like 2 outs, aka is basically drawing that. So and yeah, obviously there are some hands that have 2 overcards. You could say, yeah, that's nice, folding out like ace king, ace queen. But again, like these hands are versus pocket jacks only have like 15% equity, and it's also tough for him, to bluff you out of the pot with your hand. So betting small or checking should definitely be the thing, but going all in is like never ever good here, just because yeah, you just isolate yourself versus the not that part of his range, and he will definitely have all the nuts in his range, especially on the 9 pairing. It would be kind of a different story, if the turn was like a random, let's say a random three of spades, then we could also see that now some hands really want to go all in. So, but since the 9 is that good for him, and he has so many 9x, and if we are getting called by a 9, pocket jacks is just drawing that, and while here pocket jacks could get called, by like pocket eights, pocket tens, whatever, or like ace 9, king 9. So on this turn card, it would be much better, but on the 9, it's basically the worst turn card to use the all-in sizing with this hand. And then the last one is what happens when he just range bets small, which could definitely happen, I think. So let's say he bets small. Let's check our equity. Now we definitely have more equity again versus betting range. So that's also why the raising frequency goes up again. Now we are a bit more interested in check raising. Also pocket jacks, you can see again. Sometimes it's going to raise, but still mainly it's just going to call. But in case we raise, he's supposed to defend very wide to not overfold once he c bets like that wide of a range. Again, he's supposed to defend like again the check 10 off and stuff, or even like the a7 with a diamond. So it's kind of tough for him to, once he range bets, to not overfold versus a check raise. But again, that would quite benefit these kind of hands, him overfolding, but it doesn't really benefit pocket jacks because it's just a value hand. So we don't want overfolds. We rather want to make him call with like worse hands or protect versus the 2 overcards, the ace kings, the ace queen suited. So yeah, if in case you think, okay, he's too wide, now I'm going to check raise, that's actually wrong, because yeah, you should do that if with your bluffs, but not that often with your value hands. So yeah. And then in case he calls, and then the turn card is the 9. Again, we can see we are mainly checking even 90% and only betting small, never going all in. We can see again EV, pocket jacks. Now it's like you can you can see the difference got smaller just because of the simple reason that now when we would jam, because his range is way wider, you can see he's actually supposed to fend quite wide. If we check the hands here, if we check, for some reason it's not showing the EVs, but whatever. Yeah, let's see, maybe here. No, still not showing. Whatever. But yeah, he has to defend. Let's check it here then. He still needs to defend some deuce X. He needs to defend pocket 8s, pocket 7s, pocket 6s, pocket 5s, so all the under pairs at some frequency. So that's why jamming could make sense. If he just calls off with all these hands, we're actually getting called yeah, by the lower pairs, and not only by the over pairs in the 9x, and then it could make a bit more sense. We saw it's still quite a difference, so it's still not a thing to go all in here. And yeah, if I mean, I could, node lock now him folding out all these kind of pairs, but I don't really have to do it. It's quite obvious what would happen, that the EV of the EV of jamming would become like very, very bad, I think. If I could do that real quick. And while doing that, we could also check. Okay, let's go here and then go all the under pairs. Let's say he's just folding, let's just node lock the weakish pairs. So this kind of range, and let's say he's just folding way more often. For some reason it doesn't work. I had this like a few times now that for some reason it seems not to work to not lock like this. I have no clue why it is, but yeah, whatever. Then let's not do that. But yeah, you can imagine what would happen. And now let's say we're gonna take this. Also here that the equities and stuff are not showing is a bit weird. Okay, okay, seems like PIO has a bit of a problem. But yeah, if we would take these kind of hands in position, and we put it here in Equilab, then we actually get to see here on this turn card with our actual hand versus his calling range, we would have 46%. So doesn't seem too great to go all in if you have like less than 50%. And now we have to add what we saw in the preflop stuff, that actually we need like 15 to 20% more. So actually we need like 60 to 65. Or no, we have to dilute that, so we would end up at like 30% equity or something. So then yeah, it doesn't really look that great. And also this is the calling range with all the deuce X and the 4X, which we could get rid of it. Now we do the node lock manually, which is fine, I guess. And now if we check, we can already see it dropped quite a bit. And now if we add the risk premium, it's like, yeah, it's like, in my eyes, it's like a pretty big punt if you're gonna jam pocket jacks here. Yeah, I would like to see I would like to see a small-ish bet, and don't expect him basically to attack it enough, or aggressive enough. So I think we could realize our equity pretty well. We could still get calls from weaker hands, and if he raises, I think we just have a pretty easy fold at this point, because I don't think he finds like enough of the random hands he would need to. So yeah, I could see check raise and then small barrel being a good play. Or I mean, I would probably prefer to check call the flop, because I think that he's gonna see bet way too wide, and he's definitely gonna overfold versus the raise. So I don't really mind calling, and also with calling, if he should see bet too wide, and then we also could have the chance that he's gonna put too much pressure and he's just gonna barrel way too aggressively, and then we just gonna call it down with this hand most of the time. And yeah, that's that's what I think. Um, yeah, I hope you liked the hand analysis. Sorry for like PIO solver, yeah, not working as it should. Yeah, might have to look into that with maybe an update or whatever. But yeah, that's it for the hand. And yeah, maybe doing some more of these analysis type of videos in the future. Yeah, let me know if you liked it, or if you have like any advice what I could do better. And yeah, then see you in the next one.